Welcome to Days of Roar, the Detroit Tiger podcast, brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Goraj. I am here with Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold. After hours and hours and hours of football, recording, guests, it's been a full day of sports. How you doing, man? You look a little tired.
I'm doing great, man. The Petzold family is doing good. We've gone from triple digits to double digits until our pregnancy due date, so that's exciting. Our basement renovation is 95% complete, so that's exciting as well. And I shoveled my driveway for the first time, which was a lot less exciting, but still pretty cool. And then you got the Detroit Lions. They're going to play the Washington Commanders in the NFC divisional round. As a Lions fan myself, Jaden Daniels scares me a little bit. He's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. When he's at his best, he can beat you in so many different ways on the ground and through the air. As for baseball stuff, the reliever market's starting to move. The Tigers have poked around there, so we'll see if they sign someone near the top of the market or maybe more of a mid-market, mid-tier bullpen arm. And then for this episode, we have two amazing guests, Ben Badler from Baseball America to talk about top-ranked international prospect Cris Rodriguez, a 16-year-old from the Dominican Republic who I'm told is signing with the Tigers for $3.2 million signing bonus, the largest bonus in franchise history given to an international prospect. And then we have Tigers player Matt Vierling, who is actually in Detroit right now for a 2-day hitting camp with the other position players at Comerica Park. It's for the coaches to get in-person time with all the hitters. We've only got 35 days until the first full squad workout in spring training. As for Matt Vierling, he discussed everything from Notre Dame football and the national championship to his 2012 Ford Escape that he still drives even after agreeing to a more than $3 million salary in 2025 in arbitration. And then we also talked a lot about him and his team. But in terms of news, the only notable Detroit Tigers news this week involves future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander. He signed a 1-year, $15 million contract with the San Francisco Giants, which is the same deal that Alex Cobb signed with the Tigers and Charlie Morton signed with the Baltimore Orioles. For the record, I never heard the Tigers were interested in bringing back Justin Verlander, but it's just fascinating that he signed 1 year, $15 million, just like Alex Cobb did. But that's really it, man. Not a whole lot of baseball news right now. Reliever market's starting to move. We'll see if anything happens there. And then obviously the JV signing was a pretty big deal.
Winter outside. Evan Petzold and Mark Goraj hates winter. I've scheduled many a trip to the West Coast during this time of year. This year I did not, in a serious way. Everybody on the West Coast, we're thinking about you. It's the most unbelievable event I've ever seen in my life. It seemed more even devastating than many hurricanes, if not all hurricanes. And my heart goes out to people watching your house just get burned to a crisp is heart-wrenching, to say the least. So thoughts, prayers, if you'd like to offer prayers, and we hope everything works out. Back to baseball. I hope everybody sticks around and listen to Matt Vierling. It was 30 minutes of just absolute one gem after another. You can see why he holds such an esteemed place in the clubhouse, and dropped a lot of good tidbits to us. It was fun talking to him, and Ben Badler was great about Cris Rodriguez. We got into all kinds of things about IFAs, which are international free agents. It's a hell of a show. All right. Alex Cobb, Charlie Morton, Justin Verlander all getting the same amount of money. You want my 2 cents? Yeah, of course, I'd have loved to see JV for the $15 million, and we could get into the pitching side of it. One's 42, one's 37. One was not very good last year and was hurt all year, and one was just hurt all year and never did anything and thought he was retiring. In 2023, they both pitched a full season. One was a 3.3 WAR pitcher. One was a 1.8 WAR pitcher. The numbers were reasonably similar in every way, although Cobb struck out a few more guys. I'll still take JV any day of the week for those of you that want to add in what he did in 2024. JV was healthy for 1 month in 2024. He was injured almost the entire rest of the year, and even when he threw at the end of the year, he wasn't healthy. The 1 month he was healthy was May. He threw the 5th most innings of any pitcher in that month. 36 innings, had a 3.67 ERA, and looked almost duplicative of how he looked in 2023. Take the guy with multiple Cy Youngs coming home any day of the week over Alex Cobb. Charlie Morton, not even part of my thinking. So that's the short version of my take on that. You got a take on it?
I think it's important to look at the projections for 2025 because according to Fangraphs, Cobb is projected to have the best season among the three pitchers. Alex Cobb projected for 2 WAR and a 3.65 ERA. Justin Verlander projected for 1.5 WAR and a 4.43 ERA. And Charlie Morton projected for 1.4 WAR with a 4.16 ERA. Did the Tigers make the right decision signing Cobb over Morton and Verlander? From a baseball perspective, yes. From a business perspective, I'm not so sure they did. Because we live in a world in which the Tigers need to sell more home plate club tickets. Otherwise, it's going to look empty behind home plate on TV, or you're giving away very expensive tickets to save face on TV. So when you think about it that way, Justin Verlander would have helped the Tigers from a business standpoint. He's the most beloved Tiger of the 21st century, player, coach, manager, executive, and one of the most beloved Tigers in all of franchise history. But from a baseball standpoint, I think President of Baseball Operations Scott Harris made the right decision with Alex Cobb rather than Charlie Morton or Justin Verlander. When healthy, Alex Cobb is the best pitcher among that group. The only question is whether or not Cobb can stay healthy. Fangraphs hasn't projected it for 127 innings. We'll see about that.
All right, let's dive into question one of the big two. Who is Cris Rodriguez?
Cris Rodriguez is a very important name that Tigers fans need to know. He's a top-ranked international prospect from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. He's 16 years old. His birthday is January 28th, 2008, so he's about to turn 17. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's a right-handed hitter. He's an outfielder who plays center field, and he is the number 4 international prospect according to both Baseball America and MLB Pipeline. He would have been number 3 on both lists. Then Roki Sasaki was posted by his team in Japan and immediately became the number 1 prospect, which pushed Cris Rodriguez to number 4. Here's the big thing. On Wednesday, January 15th, which is when the 2025 international signing period begins, Cris Rodriguez will sign with the Detroit Tigers for a $3.2 million bonus. Now, Cris Rodriguez is the highest ranked international prospect the Tigers have ever signed. And at $3.2 million, it's the largest signing bonus the Tigers have ever given to an international prospect. I want to give a shout out to Rodolfo Pinalo, the Tigers area scout in the DR, who is responsible for signing Rodriguez. But to learn more about the 16-year-old Dominican outfielder Cris Rodriguez, we brought in the expert, Ben Badler from Baseball America. So Ben, I'll ask you the question. Who is Cris Rodriguez?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. You can't miss him when you see him, right? He's a big, physical, 6'4", 200-pound guy who hits the ball really, really hard. I mean, the raw power with him stands out right away. The physicality, the power, and he can run too. I mean, for such a big guy, he runs really well. He's a plus runner underway. So if everything clicks, you have a guy who has a mix of power speed for that power speed threat. It's definitely, I think, a power over hit offensive profile for him. So, we'll see what the results look like once the Dominican Summer League games get started. But obviously shooting for big upside with Cris Rodriguez and really banking on that power and his ability to potentially tap into that power enough against live pitching once the games get started.
It's always tough to understand how good 16-year-old baseball players are. And like any draft, you're always a slave to, how good this particular crop of Bay kids are. So this is the biggest, money signing the Tigers have ever done. So a little perspective on how good this crop of kids are relative to either last year or next year. Is this a really good crop of kids? Is, the number 5 kid as good as the number 1 kid last year? Give us some perspective to what and how good Cris Rodriguez is in a relative sense on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say in terms of evaluating a class entirely internationally, because we can look at, a draft and say, okay, the 2024 draft was like way down. And we knew that years in advance, and the 2023 draft looked phenomenal. And so far that seems to be true too. But with international players, these players are agreeing to sign and committing to sign with clubs 2-3+ years in advance of their actual official signing date of January 15th. And once that happens, then okay, that the team that's signing them is already obviously going to see them quite a bit, but the other clubs around baseball are not really scouting that player anymore in a competitive environment. They're saying, all right, well, he's already going to sign here. We're not going to spend our time seeing him, and he's not going to other showcase and things like that. So, they might, a scout from another team might run into him taking BP or something like that, or maybe there's a game they play against each other, but it makes it really challenging to evaluate both the individual players themselves, but also just the overall state of the class. Cause you can call, a scout, international director, Dominican supervisor, whoever, about a player and say, hey, what'd you think of this guy? And he'll give you a report and say, oh, but also this is from like the last time I saw him, which was a year and a half or 2 years ago when he was like 14 or 15 years old. So for that, I mean, that's a big part of the reason why we just line up our board right now based on, what the expected bonus amount is. It's just a wildly different process compared to scouting players in the draft where, it would be unheard of, right, for a first round pick to go off the board and another team being like, nah, we never saw him or we haven't seen this guy in like 2 or 3 years, right? So it makes it creates a lot more uncertainty in an arena where, it's already hard enough, like you said, to try to project the future for kids who are 16, 17 years old.
For Cris Rodriguez, what are the strengths and weaknesses right now?
Yeah, strengths are definitely the physicality, the athleticism, the raw tools that he has, right? He can put on a huge show in BP. He can drive the ball with damage, impact. I think you're going to see a guy who has a chance to, certainly he's going to get his share of mistakes in the DSL in terms of the pitches that he sees. And I could see him putting up big home run numbers his debut year. I think that the key will be, how much, what does a strikeout rate look like that first year out? We'll get a much better sense of the game hitting ability once we have a lot more information and a lot more history of that against pro competition. And then the athleticism, the speed, he's a big guy. I'm sure they'll start him in center field and give him every opportunity to stay there, but we'll see how well he holds his speed going up. Obviously a guy like Julio Rodriguez with the Mariners got, not just held his speed, but got even faster as he moved up the ladder and can play center field. But a lot of times bigger guys fill out, they slow down as, maybe he ends up 230, 240. I don't know. Again, it's hard to say with 16 years old and maybe he slides to a corner, but definitely that chance for impact power and potentially at a premium position if he's able to maintain his speed and stay in center field.
How high is the upside for Cris Rodriguez on offense and really on defense too, as he develops? Like when you look at this guy long term and you look at the highest possible upside, what are we talking about there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hope is if everything clicks that he's somebody who could potentially hit in the middle of a lineup one day. But when these guys are 16, just about to turn 17 years old, it's hard to make a strong bet on that. But if he's able to make enough contact and everything aligns, yeah, I mean, you could see him hitting 25, maybe 30 plus home runs. And if he's able, if he's able to do that and whether it's in center field or right field, either way, I think that would be a pretty good outcome.
Everybody likes to do player comps, and at 16 years old, it's always difficult to do. You mentioned Julio Rodriguez. You got, MLB Pipeline says Eloy Jimenez, and that would be a tragedy if that's what it ends up being. But, who would you give some comparisons to, Ben?
I don't know if there's anybody that jumps to mind immediately for him as a player comparison, but yeah, just that big physical athletic outfielders. There's not that many guys running around who are like 6'4" who have that kind of power speed combination that he has. So it's just a good raw tool set to be able to build on.
I guess too, when you look at long term, what's kind of the biggest area of concern? Is it that swing and miss and the strikeout potential? The fact that he could be a guy that's a high swing and miss, high strikeout type of power hitter?
Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, I don't think anybody questions the power that he has. It's more just the approach. How does that play against, pro pitching that we'll see this year? The pitch recognition, the ability to adjust to off speed stuff. So I think we'll get a much better sense of that this season because, if there were no questions about that, if he was this, super advanced, polished, pure hitter, we're probably talking about somebody who's getting probably the biggest bonus in the class just based on the the supplementary tools that he brings to the table too.
You've been doing this for a long time. There's been a lot of hype for two other highly ranked international prospects who signed with the Tigers in the past. None of them as highly ranked as Cris Rodriguez, but Tigers fans were pumped up about Christian Santana and Roberto Campos. Here's what I want to know. How does Cris Rodriguez stack up compared to Santana and Campos, both in prospect status and in future value?
It's just like a very different player, I think, than those guys where like Santana, you were betting on, a shortstop who you thought could hit. Campos, you're really looking at more of a corner guy, really just banking on the power and hopefully enough hit ability there. Whereas with Rodriguez, it's more dynamic, maybe more along the lines of like a Jose De La Cruz. Obviously, I'm sure they're betting and hoping for, there's better pure hitting ability with him. But I mean, De La Cruz has, huge power. It's just, he hasn't been able to obviously tap into it in games when the strikeouts have been a huge problem. So that's some of the risk there that is involved. But, certainly the upside is there if everything does click for that power to be pretty special.
I think a very pertinent question about Major League Baseball now isn't it kind of crazy that Major League Baseball is structured as it is now, is paying millions of dollars to 16-year-old kids, in a pure free agency sense. And I know they discussed the IFA, international free agency draft quite a bit in the last, CBA, and then kind of tabled it. But do you think there ever will be an international draft? It sure seems like it would benefit the teams, more than the kids, but, signing 16-year-old kids for all this money is quite a crapshoot, even as professional as the scouting is.
Yeah, I think, even if you go to a draft system, the bonuses are still going to be, at least for the top guys, millions of dollars. So I've been doing this for a while, and every CBA, MLB talks a big game about how they really want to have an international draft. And you can find stories in Baseball America going back to like the early 90s when Sandy Alderson was at MLB and talking about how a draft is inevitable. It's coming. And all right, we're like 20, 30 years later now. So it still hasn't happened. So I think MLB definitely wants to have a draft, but they're also in this situation where they know that the union, it doesn't really affect players in the union. So the union doesn't really care that much about an international draft if they're being totally candid and honest. So MLB also doesn't want to give up something big to the union in exchange for an international draft, which I think is a mistake. Just give them something significant and you'll get your international draft. But they also got the union to agree to this hard cap system that we're in now, where it used to be unrestricted free agency or bonus pools. They used to be able to exceed and just basically pay a tax for going over it. So as of now, it's not a big cost containment issue for MLB the way it used to. So I'm sure, absolutely MLB is going to push for a draft in the next CBA. It's just a matter of how much they're willing to give the union and how much the union will ask for in exchange for giving the commissioner's office the draft.
All right. Again, this has been Ben Badler from Baseball America. Cris Rodriguez signs with the Tigers on January 15th. It's something the Tigers should be very, very excited about. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Question 2 of the big 2, and it's a big one. Should we expect Jackson Jobe to win the American League Rookie of the Year in 2025?
We talked about FanGraph projections earlier with Justin Verlander and Alex Cobb and Charlie Morton. Jackson Jobe is projected for a 4.62 ERA with an 8.5% walk rate and a 17.8% strikeout rate across 132 innings, which would not win him AL Rookie of the Year. But here's what we know. Jackson Jobe is going to make the opening day roster in the starting rotation as long as he's competent in spring training. And we also know that Jackson Jobe is the best pitching prospect in baseball. When you combine those things, throw out the projections. I know he's only 22 years old, but the sky is the limit for his potential. Here's a talking point for Rookie of the Year. MLB Pipeline, they polled front office members from all 30 teams. Jackson Jobe and Boston Red Sox outfielder Roman Anthony tied at the top of the preseason poll for AL Rookie of the Year, both receiving 19.1% of the vote. After that, there was New York Yankees outfielder Jason Dominguez with 17%, and Baltimore Orioles corner infielder Kobe Mayo with 14.9%. Red Sox middle infielder / center fielder Kristen Campbell with 8.5%, and athletic shortstop Jacob Wilson with 8.5%. Four other players accounted for the remaining 12.9%. So you got Jackson Jobe, Roman Anthony, Jason Dominguez, and Kobe Mayo. Those are the top four players in the AL Rookie of the Year projection, according to front office members. I actually like Kristen Campbell the most among all those players I mentioned earlier, even more than Jobe. But that's just my opinion. I think Kristen Campbell is going to be a monster for the Red Sox. But anyway, should we expect Jackson Jobe to win AL Rookie of the Year? Knowing what we know, I think we should at least expect him to be one of three finalists because he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the innings. He already has MLB experience, and he's the best pitching prospect in baseball. My one concern with Jackson Jobe, though, is like he pitched only 5 2/3 innings with the Tigers last season between the regular season and the postseason. But in those innings, he had a 9.5% swing and miss rate. The average whiff rate for MLB pitchers is 26%. Even in AAA Toledo, Jobe had a 20% whiff rate. So a 20% whiff rate in AAA and then a 9.5% whiff rate in MLB. The fact that he hasn't missed bats at the upper levels is concerning to me. Yes, it's a very small sample size. At the same time, this guy is supposed to be an ace of the future. So I want to see Jackson Jobe miss more bats. He has the tools to do so with his high velocity fastball, swing and miss changeup, high spin slider, but he needs to translate that to getting whiffs against MLB hitters. If he doesn't miss bats, it could get ugly. So is finishing top 3 in AL Rookie of the Year voting, is that too high of an expectation for Jackson Jobe? I don't think so, but there are some things I'd like to see him overcome, headlined by that swing and miss.
That's what I got to say about projections. Projections are pretty tough things to do, especially when you're a pitcher like Jackson Jobe who threw 6 innings in the major leagues. I get what happened at Toledo. That was a pretty short stint also. Here's what I will also tell you. History tells me with Fetter, Lund, Nieves, that if you're able to endure with them, you're going to learn how to miss bats if you already have some semblance of spin. The two pitchers that have really struggled in their development under Fetter, Lund, and Nieves are Matt Manning and Casey Mize. Neither spin the ball great. Manning spins it much better than he used to. Mize spins it much worse than he used to. But if you can spin it, they've done nothing but optimize what you do, and the swing and miss goes off the chart. Let's use, Olsen and Skubal as 2 great examples of that. And I think even Bo Brisky is starting to pick up his whiff rate. I think Jackson Jobe will be perfectly fine. And anybody that thinks his whiff rate's going to be 17% has lost their mind. I would think his swing and miss rate will be above league average, and his whiff rate will be at least in the low to mid 20s if he throws over 100 innings. I just want to make sure he stays healthy. He's got a lot of pitching aptitude. He's got a great changeup. He's got a really, really, really good fastball, and can't wait to see what his cutter and his sweeper look like. So I'm not too worried about Jackson Jobe. As far as Rookie of the Year, who cares? I mean, I'd like him to win Rookie of the Year because we'd be an extra draft choice if he starts the season with the Tigers, and that's always nice. That part we haven't discussed, have we? So I'm not too worried about Jackson Jobe. He'll be fine.
I'm right there with you. I think as long as he misses bats, he's going to be just fine. And you're right. He's got the stuff to miss the bats. He obviously has to get some more experience under his belt. But again, this is a guy who's shown time and time again that when he's locked into the strike zone, he's challenging hitters in the zone as opposed to trying to do a little bit too much to get that swing and miss. Like when he just goes at guys and attacks, as long as he doesn't back away from a little bit of contact, because look, he's going to end up facing situations where there's going to be a team that's going to hit him hard. He might get hit hard a few games in a row. My big question is, does that cause him to, fear the strike zone, or does he continue to attack? Because he's got stuff that he needs to be attacking inside the zone. As long as he does that, I think he's going to be A-okay, even though he might have some outings that are a little bit rocky. We saw that with Skubal, especially early on, right? Like getting hit around a little bit. It happens. Even the best of pitchers, rookie year, it's going to happen. Not everybody's going to be Paul Skeens. But for Jackson Jobe, again, I think as long as he continues to stay inside the strike zone and pound the zone with his best stuff, he's going to be great in the long run. And I think that should set him up to be top 3 in AL Rookie of the Year and possibly win it because, again, he has the stuff to win AL Rookie of the Year. It's just who Jackson Jobe is. It's who he's always been. And it's who I believe he is going to be as soon as 2025.
When we come back, we have a great interview with Detroit Tiger third baseman outfielder Matt Vierling. We'll be right back.
I'd like to welcome Detroit Tigers player Matt Vierling to the Days of Roar podcast for the first time. Matt joined the Tigers in 2023 after a trade from the Phillies. He had a career best season in 2024, and now he's on the show as we look ahead to the 2025 season. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Evan, Mark, thanks for having me on, guys. Fired up.
So before we talk Tigers, we need to talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. For anyone who doesn't know, Matt played 3 seasons at Notre Dame, so of course he's a big Notre Dame fan. What's it been like watching Notre Dame football this season, and how do you feel about your chances against Ohio State in the national championship game?
Man, I'll tell you what, it's been unbelievable watching them play. Just to kind of, at the beginning of the season, I remember being in the Oakland locker room and watching them lose to Northern Illinois. And I think every one of my teammates just laid into me that day. Like, how can they lose to Northern Illinois? Season's over, all that stuff. But then ever since then, it's just been, they've been rolling, and to see them get into the playoff and then like do what they're doing, it's pretty impressive. I love the coach, Marcus Freeman, and just the guys on the team. I feel like they're kind of playing with a little bit of what we were playing with at the end of the year, a little bit of that like really good culture, some magic kind of going where things are just kind of going right. And also just the way they go about their business is pretty cool. So it's been a lot of fun watching them. And then as far as Ohio State, no doubt, most talented team in the country, probably the most 5 stars, 4 stars around. But I don't know. It's going to be a good battle. I feel like Notre Dame is just playing with something right now. So, and the coach and the culture, I feel like they got a good shot.
Hey, if Michigan beat them, you can beat them, all right?
I know. They've been rolling since then, but
I know.
Yeah, I think we got a good shot. I'm pretty excited.
All right, so let's talk Tigers. We want to start by talking about the team. I remember AJ Hinch went on the Foul Territory show and low-key name-dropped you as a team leader, but he said that last offseason. And then we saw your leadership on full display in the 2024 season. How did you kind of see yourself grow into that role? And would you learn from last season, both like as an individual stepping up in a leadership role and then what you guys were able to do as a team through that?
Yeah, I didn't really try to be a leader, so to speak. More of just I'm more of a one-on-one type guy, just try to show the young guys a little bit how to go about their business. But as far as leader, I never really try to be like that guy. I know we have so many of those guys in the locker room, like Raj is so good. And, some guys on the bullpen side, like Vesti and obviously Scoobs in the rotation and Casey, and just leading the young guys along the way about how to go about their business. But yeah, just to kind of be able to help them along the way, and then kind of go into the playoffs again with a team that, at least I think, was crazy. I really was the only guy that had been to the playoffs. So just to kind of give the guys a little bit of how it was going to be, and the guys who were coming with me asking what it was like, kind of just tell them what it's like and what they're going to feel. And now everybody's got a taste of that. So it's kind of really good that we were able to do that. And now we can kind of move forward this year with that experience. So
how much did your time with the Phillies, with Schwarber, Harper, Real Muto help, kind of impact your maturity and creating the culture that obviously was so big for the 2024 Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I learned from those guys was just treating everybody the same. I mean, as big as names as those guys are, they treated, the young guys the exact same as they treated the older guys. It was like everybody was on the same level. And that year we really meshed well, and all the young guys got along with the older guys, and the pitchers got along with the hitters, and the whole locker room really meshed well together. And those guys, the biggest thing was just how they treated everybody. You felt like you could go talk to them about anything. So just being around them and seeing how they went about their business. And also you kind of take things that they said during critical points in the season, and I remembered those and just tried to apply them to, our team when we got to those critical points.
Culture's a big thing. And I think a lot of times, how do you try to impart to these young players that you're talking about how to handle the adversity and the failure? And in adding into that, look, you have arguably the best manager in baseball, the best culture shaper maybe in baseball, in AJ Hinch. So how does that all work together? How do you, help keep younger players from allowing the moment to get too big? And how does AJ play in helping you develop that culture?
I guess I'll start with AJ. He's just an incredible communicator. Like he will let you know, what he's thinking. He'll let you know what's on his mind, what's going on, where he's thinking about playing you, what he's thinking about doing down the road. And then, as far as the other piece of that, just being around the guys and using what AJ's kind of been, at least when I talk with him and telling him what I should tell the younger guys, and he talks with Raj as well. I mean, it's almost like he brings everybody into the office, and his office is right next to the locker room, and we can go in and all of us can kind of talk to him. So he's a huge help for us. And Mark, I think I forgot the other part of the question. What was that?
How you help younger players understand and overcome adversity. I mean, when you come up, the difference, we talked with Ryan Garko about this. I mean, the difference in skill level as an example of pitching, hitting in the major leagues and hitting in AAA. I mean, philosophically, it might be the same, but the skill level of the pitching is just so dramatically different these days than it used to be. And consequently, the level of failure is probably much more significant. And, hitting is already, there's a lot of failure in hitting even to begin with. How do you help younger players understand how to deal with the adversity? Because that's, mentally you get beaten down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me when I was in Philly. I came up in 2021 and I played really, really well for about a month, and then was slated to play a lot in 2022 and completely fell flat on my face for like the first month. And then they sent me down, and like all those feelings of like, oh man, I suck. I don't know if I can do this. Like putting too much pressure on myself was probably the center of the whole thing. Ended up going down in AAA to Lehigh Valley and kind of getting my footing again. Still took me like 2 or 3 weeks down there to figure it out and get some confidence back. But once I got that back, I was able to come back up and have some success and it was a wild year just coming back and playing in the World Series. But I take that experience with a lot of the guys that I see that come up. I mean, I'm still, I'm in my 4th year. I'm still kind of going through all that, dealing with the ups and downs and the adversity. I'm probably never stopped dealing with the adversity that comes with the game, but going through that tough experience my rookie year, I've seen that a lot happen in baseball, like with these young guys that come up. A lot of them struggle to begin with. And just being able to go through that experience, I kind of know what they're thinking. I kind of know what they're going through. I kind of know also, sometimes you don't play, sometimes you play. How do you manage that? So just little things that come with like getting yourself into the lineup or getting on the roster, especially for a guy that was kind of on the bubble a little bit. For some guys, who are, projected to be stars, they can come up and they have a lot of leeway to play. Some guys, really got to fight to get in the lineup. I felt like I was in kind of that position in Philly, and I can also help guys in that way. So just through past experiences, I'm able to help these young guys, and I'm still going through that stuff myself. So they help me too.
Matt, you mentioned still going through some of those ups and downs, but it was a lot of ups for you in 2024. You were worth 3 WAR. That's a really good season. You hit a career high 16 home runs without sacrificing batting average or on base percentage. Really got into the pull side power consistently, really for the first time in your career. How do you reflect on the 4th season of your big league career? I think 3rd full season, especially just from a developmental standpoint.
Yeah, I was really happy with it. I felt like I made some pretty good steps. I went into that off season kind of knowing what I wanted to do, and that's obviously pull the ball in the air more and definitely pull velocity more in the air. That's always been something I've struggled with in the past and always something that I've tried to work through. And this year I finally felt like I was able to make some adjustments mechanically to get to that. And then also the other half of that is just mentally making the adjustments to get to that, especially with the velocity and trying to pull balls more. And I was able to kind of stay consistent in the other areas too, along with increasing the performance and in my power. So I was really happy with it. Obviously, what we did with the team this past year was probably what I was most fired up about, just to kind of see everything come together and being able to contribute more to the team and have a big role kind of going into that playoff.
You discussed, pulling the ball, especially in the air, a lot more in 2024. We did a little homework to, emphasize what those changes and how the productivity changed. You increased your barrel percentage. You reduced your ground ball percentage. You raised your ISO. You swung at fewer pitches outside the zone. You really elevated your pull side power. You had 49 extra base hits. 44 of them were to the pull side. So we know what you worked on last off season. What are you working on this offseason?
Trying to build off that, trying to keep that going. I felt like I had a lot of success with that, and I really do want to just keep pushing and with that in that area, keep getting the ground ball percentage down, kind of have bigger splits to the pull side. Obviously, I would love to have more power to the right side of the field. And like you said, I think he's 46 of my 49 or 44 of my 49 were to the pull side. I'm okay with that. I don't really want to give that up. I still want to do that. So pretty much it's just working on what I did last offseason, trying to pull the ball in the air, also trying to get my body moving right to do that and get it feeling good and kind of make adjustments as they come, but really just take the same approach I had last year and keep that going.
Is the concept of loading up early, getting that movement in your hands before you swing, is that still a pretty big cue for you with your swing? And if so, who taught you that? What was the process like getting used to it? And how has that worked for you so far?
Yeah, I remember at the end of 2023, that really clicked for me. And I think I remember talking to you, Evan, about that. That was something I worked on. That still is a big cue for me. I still use that cue at times. And it's like a movement in my hands that allows me to load up early. But I've also got a couple other cues that I've worked on in this offseason and during last year that also work. So it's kind of like you got different cues you can go to at certain times when you feel like you need to. So yeah, that's definitely one of them. And I remember with that cue specifically, Miggy at the end of 2023, he was talking about, I think it was Cris Rodriguez told him like when he first came up, like you got to move your hands, you got to load up, you got to do something. And I kind of watched how he would do this like U motion with it or C motion with his hands and kind of took that into the cage and something clicked. And I was able to ride that for the last month of the year and kind of put that away whenever I need it, if I need to dip into that tool bag.
Was there a better teammate than Miggy, man? I mean, come on, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing what that guy's done and everything he's been through is on the baseball side. It's pretty incredible. And I remember watching that guy hit when I was like 12 years old, and it was just like unbelievable. I was trying to hit like him back then. So then to play with him that last year and to even like talk with him and get some hitting advice and just see how he went about his business, it was really cool.
So I heard a bunch of players are getting together at Comerica Park in Detroit to do some hitting for a couple of days this week. Is this the first time the boys are officially getting back together? And what's that going to be like?
Yeah, we're all getting back together. At least the position players, not the pitchers. But yeah, we got a little like hitting camp going. Obviously optional, voluntary, but everybody wanted to come up and do it. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be really fun. We're up here for a couple days, and I would say most of everybody's up here. And I feel like it's going to be like an hour of hitting, hour of working out, and the rest of the time just going to be hanging out with each other. So it's going to be pretty cool.
That's awesome. So we live in an age too where almost everyone has their own hitting coach back home in the off season. How do you and other guys stay on the same page with the team hitting coaches? I know for the players who live in Arizona, it's a little bit easier because the hitting guys are out there, but not everyone lives in Arizona. So what's that communication like? How do you guys all stay on the same page? Then when you do meet up, it's like, okay, we all know what we've been working on this entire off season.
I think that, Michael Bradar, Keith Beauregard, Lance Dowalski, our hitting coaches are phenomenal. Like just being around them, their communication is great. They're just normal dudes. Each one of them has like a specific thing that they really are good at. And yeah, they've been great. But I think the thing is they're in constant communication with us, at least with me. So I've been talking to a couple of the hitting coaches a lot, and I have a program with them, and I've kind of been following that. And we kind of have constant communication on what we're feeling each week. I would say we talk like once a week just to stay up to date with what we got going on. And that way we kind of have an idea of what everybody's working on or what they're going through. And now they get to be up here in Detroit. I mean, you kind of get to see it with their eyes, and you get to work with them a little bit, and it's going to be a really good tune-up for the year.
Speaking of hitting coaches too, what's it like game planning for pitchers before a game? Because they do a phenomenal job. But can you kind of take us behind the scenes as a team prepares for a starting pitcher? Maybe using somebody like, I don't know, Framber Valdez as an example, because there's a team approach, right? But then there's also an individual approach. How do those two things kind of blend as you guys game plan?
Yeah, Framber is a great example. So I would say like the lead person on all that, Michael Radar, really breaks down almost everything statistically about the pitcher. And I'm sure he goes over it with Keith and Lance, but then we have a hitting meeting every day. I guess that would be your team approach, team meeting about what the guy's going to feature that day. And they are able to also, our hitting analyst, Jonah Simon, is great. They're able to kind of make a video, dumb all the stats down to like very easy levels for all of us to understand. This is how hard he throws. These are how much he throws his pitches. This is what the ball is going to do. This is the spots in the zone where the ball is going to be. Keeps it fairly simple. And then there's some video associated with that, showing all the pitches and everything. And then individually, I can overthink at times about guys, and I can overthink on certain things. I've learned that about myself. So I try to keep things very simple. I try to see how hard the guy throws, where he throws his pitches. Some guys like to sit on certain pitches in certain counts. I've started to do that a little bit more just with how hard guys throw and how nasty some of the pitches are. It's hard to cover 3 nasty pitches. So Framber, for example, he's got a nasty 2-seam sinker, and then he's also got a changeup that plays off that. And then he's got a breaking ball that picks up speed almost once it hits its turn coming down. So those are 3 pitches that you have to worry about. It's better to kind of pick 2 of them that he likes to throw a lot and kind of be ready for those, and then look in a certain location for those. I don't want to give away everything because I like hitting off Framber, but yeah, certain guys you definitely have specific approaches for. Certain guys like to know more about the movement of the pitches. Certain guys like to know like more percentage-based stuff. I try to keep things simple, kind of just be ready for a certain pitch at a certain time. I could definitely overthink, so I've learned that I can't really dive too deep in the weeds there.
I always like to understand the philosophy when you're at the plate and it's more of a leverage situation. So, whether there's bases loaded or it's the 7th inning, guy on second, 2 out, do you have kind of a go-to swing? You have a go-to philosophy that in high leverage, try not to do too much, that you like to apply in situations like that? I mean, a lot of hitters do, not all hitters, but I'm curious if that's something maybe you employ yourself.
Yeah. So in high leverage, you're talking like 3-1 counts or 2-0 counts, kind of like.
Or guys in scoring position late in games, 1-run game either way, where you really need to, you need to score a run. You need to, it's more of a clutch situation as opposed to, being up or down 7 or 8 runs or something like that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me would just be, like I said, keep things simple, treat it like a regular at bat. As soon as I try to do something, I start doing too much. So kind of just going up there with the same approach. Like, for example, if first and third, less than 2 outs, I'm obviously trying to hit the ball into the outfield. If I harp too much and try too much to do that, I might pop one up in the infield. So it's really, the approach is like, keep it simple. Another thing too is keeping your heartbeat and keeping your anxiety kind of low when you're up there, not getting caught up too much in the moment, but just really keeping it simple and being like, okay, I want to hit a ball in the outfield. I always like to kind of tell myself, or at least say it to myself in my head, know what you want to do, hit the ball in the outfield and go and do it. Don't make it anything more than it has to be. When we get to the playoffs, that was like a real big test to kind of like almost every at bat is clutch. Like it's a clutch situation. So, and you're really battling the crowd and everything. And it can be, it can be intense at times, but it can also, if you keep it simple and keep things, straightforward, it could be a ton of fun because you get to succeed in some of those really good moments. So a lot of it's changing your mindset to an opportunity thing and then also taking advantage of the situation and keeping things simple. There are times too when you got to let it eat. You know what I mean? Like you got to just get the head out and really take a chance. That's something that AJ's even talked to me about along with the hitting coaches, is taking chances when they're given to you. 2-0 count, a 3-1 count. Take a chance, take a swing. If you look like an idiot, so be it. You got another one.
Not only did you hit 257 with 16 home runs, you played more third base, I think, than ever before in your career, but you also played all 3 outfield positions and even 2 innings at first base. How did you balance the constant changing between third base and the outfield, really just depending on how the roster was constructed, who was healthy, who was on the IL, stuff like that?
Yeah, the first base stuff was wild. I didn't see that coming at all, especially in the playoffs. But it's just kind of taking reps at all the positions and just trying to stay fresh at all of them, but just really being open to it. I would say that was the biggest thing for me. I told AJ from the get-go in spring training, like, wherever you need me, you put me, it's fine. I understand that's my role. I know, like, at the beginning of the year, Andy Ibanez went down, and then Gio went down, both with a hamstring. And then I went and played third base for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then we'd come back, and once they came back, I started playing more outfield for 2 months. And then I went and played third base a little bit more. And then it was just a constant revolving door of playing different positions at different times. But the majority is just being open to it and then taking reps and staying fresh at everything is probably the biggest thing for me. But I love it. I have a ton of fun doing it, being able to be that guy, where AJ can kind of utilize wherever, going from right field to third base, back to right field, like in some games. I think it's kind of cool up to a certain point, being able to play all his positions.
Gleyber Torres, Colt moving to first base. Talk a little bit about how you think that changes the team and how excited you are for the changes.
Yeah, I'm excited for Gleyber. I've seen Gleyber play. I think when Gleyber came to Detroit, I think it might have been last year, might have even been the year before, but he absolutely raked. I don't know what his numbers were. I think he hit a couple home runs that series, and he's a really, really talented hitter. So obviously super excited to have him on the team. And then obviously Colt going to first, and then you have Torque as well. I feel like we have a ton of good players with a ton of, opportunities to keep on playing. And I'm just really excited to kind of get everybody in there and see what it turns out to be. I obviously don't know what the roster will be or anything like that, but the more really good players we can get, the better we can be as a team.
So you got Colt at first base, Gleyber at second base, Trey Sweeney, Javi Baez at shortstop, Mix Torque in there somewhere as well. Are you kind of preparing to play third base pretty much every day in 2025 until further notice at this point? Or are you more focused on the outfield and then, hey, if you need me at third base, you let me know?
Yeah, I'm doing outfield and third base and a little bit of first base just in case. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of third base work. Kind of like last year, doing a ton of third base work, a lot of like hand stuff to prepare for the infield, but also doing some outfield stuff as well. I know how this goes. I know I'll probably be at third base at times. I know I'll probably be in the outfield at other times, or who knows, honestly. So just really preparing for everything, but I'm mainly taking a lot of ground balls at third base and just trying to prepare for that right now.
So we asked you a lot about culture early on. I do want to just kind of ask point blank, how do you describe the Tigers culture? What have you guys built over the last 2 years, and what does it really mean to be a Tiger at this point?
To describe the Tigers culture, I would just say it's like extremely fun, like a ton of good people too. That's my biggest thing with this team is like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like every guy's a good person. The egos are like minimal. Everybody's on the same level. Everybody's cool with each other. Everybody vibes with each other. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, just being around, we're all a young team. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the guys are right around the same age. And I think that has a big effect on the team as well, because a lot of those guys came up together. And then you sprinkle in a couple other people that, are on the team as well, like me, that got traded over, and you mesh right in. I would just say it's a fun group. Everybody gets along. When we went on that run last year, the confidence in the room was incredible. I mean, it didn't matter who we were playing. I felt like, I showed up to the field that day. I felt like we were going to win. It's not, you don't always feel like that at times. Sometimes you show up and you're like, man, I don't know. But I mean, during that stretch and a lot of that year, we were showing up like knowing we were going to win. So yeah, just a fun culture. And also one last thing would be just like, we really never give up. I'd say that too. And I felt like that showed itself throughout the year last year. Kind of everybody, late in games, it didn't really matter. We were the same team. We kept on pushing. And a lot of credit to that goes to the coaches and the way they coach us and pushing us on the, Joey on the base pass, George with the base stealing stuff in the outfield, and Gary Jones on the infield as well. Like everybody had a hand in everything. And a lot of credit goes to the coaches for how our locker rooms kind of develop.
It's a good time to be a Tiger, no doubt about that. Last thing, and then we'll get you out of here. I want to ask you about your car. So long story short, I was driving to the airport to catch my flight to Boston last season, and you were driving next to me on the highway, and I was a little bit surprised because you were, and I was a little bit surprised. I never brought this up to you, but I was surprised because you were driving a Ford Escape, and it was definitely an older model vehicle. And you just wouldn't imagine a lot of big leaguers driving that car. I drive a 2012 Chevy Malibu. So I'm driving that thing until the wheels fall off, like no question about it. I have nothing against cars with a lot of miles on them, but at the same time, I'm not a big leaguer. So what year is your car? How long have you been driving it? Do you have any plans to upgrade now that you got a pretty nice raise in arbitration? What's the deal there?
So it's a 2012 Ford Escape. Got it when I was 18.
Love it.
I was 16 and I had a Ford Escape before then. I don't know why. My family we have Ford Escapes, but I had like a 2008 Ford Escape. It had 120,000 miles. My mom made me get rid of that going up to Notre Dame for college. She's like, that thing's not safe enough to keep on driving. So I got a new one, and that's the one I still drive today. Right now, it's got like 174,000 miles, and it's been great. I mean, everybody is telling me I need to get a new car. My girlfriend does not stop telling me. She won't even like ride in my car with me. She just hates it so much. But I absolutely love that thing. I'm going to keep on driving it as long as I can, just like you, brother. I'm going to keep on driving it until the wheels fall off. So
no plans to upgrade?
Not right now. Not right now, to be honest.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It gets me from A to B, man. Why do I need something, you know? I'm sure at some point I'll get something new, but I love that thing. I'm going to just keep on driving. I feel like I can keep driving. It runs just fine. 4-cylinder. It's great. So yeah, I'm going to keep on going with it no matter what anybody says. So until it breaks down, even though it did break down on me during the playoffs last year, I was driving home from a game like 2 weeks before the playoffs and it broke down on me on the highway. I had to pull over and like restart it. Finally got it back going. Like the whole playoffs, I was driving a rental car because that thing was broken down. But throw a little bit of money into that thing, it's back up and running. We're good.
Who was your first call when it broke down? Like, did you call like a tow truck, or were you calling like a family member? Like, hey, what am I supposed to do? My car just broke down on the highway. Like, where do you go from there?
I literally didn't call anybody. I was in shock for a second because it was like 11 p.m. at night. I was leaving the yard.
Yeah.
But I kind of so what happened was it started just straight up stopped accelerating. So I had to kind of pull over, let it cool down for a second, gave it a couple of minutes, luckily restarts, and I was able to make it home. And that's when I told my girlfriend who was here, she came up, I was like, my car just died like 3 miles from the stadium on the highway. Like I was pretty freaked out. And then called my parents and they're yelling at me to get a new car. And my buddies are laughing at me like I need to get a new car. So yeah, I'm going to keep on going. Other than that one time, it's been pretty good.
All right. Well, you can't deny that. So, all right. Hey, Matt, thank you so much. It's all we have for you. Obviously, best of luck to Notre Dame in the national championship. Best of luck to you in the 2025 season. We can't wait to see you soon in Lakeland, Florida for spring training. Thanks again for joining the Days of Roar podcast.
Yeah. Evan, Mark, thanks, guys. Had a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Tigers avoided arbitration Thursday with all 9 of their eligible players, including Tarik Skubal. Just want to touch on how much those 9 players are making, how much money the Tigers have on their books so far for 2025. Ev, share the data.
Yeah, the big news is the Tigers avoided arbitration with all 9 players, so there won't be an arbitration hearing. The Tigers haven't had an arbitration hearing since Michael Fulmer in 2019, so the streak continues. Basically what happens is teams and arbitration-eligible players, which is pretty much anyone between 3 and 6 years of MLB service time, had to agree to salaries on Thursday. Had they not reached an agreement, both the team and the player would submit salary figures. Then at some point within the next month, a panel of arbiters, they would select either the team's proposed salary or the player's proposed salary. That's what happens in an arbitration hearing. The Tigers don't have to worry about that this year because they agreed to terms with all 9 arbitration-eligible players. Here are the salaries. Tarik Skubal, $10.15 million. Jason Foley, $3.15 million. Matt Vierling, friend of the podcast, $3.005 million. Jake Rogers, $2.64 million. Casey Mize, $2.34 million. Zach McKinstry, $1.65 million. Will Vest, $1.4 million. Andy Ibanez, $1.4 million. Bo Brisky, $1.025 million. And that is a grand total of $26.76 million for those 9 arbitration eligible players. The Tigers have $68.8 million tied up in guaranteed contracts. $25 million for Javier Baez, $15 million for Gleyber Torres, $15 million for Alex Cobb, $10 million for Kenta Maeda, and $3.8 million for Colt Keith. They also have the $26.76 million tied up in salaries for arbitration eligible players. That's Skubal and the 8 others that I just mentioned. So that's 14 of 26 players on the active roster. The other 12 players earn the MLB minimum salary of $760,000. That's about $10 million total for those players. Let's do the math now. $68.8 million for guaranteed contracts, plus $26.76 million for arbitration eligible players, plus $10 million for everyone else. The Tigers' 2025 payroll is currently at $105 million. There is still plenty of room to spend for a player, maybe like a 2-time All-Star, a Gold Glove third baseman who bats in the middle of your lineup. He's a right-handed hitter. I'm not going to say his name, but there certainly is that kind of money to spend for a player of that caliber. A guy who spent 9 years with the Houston Astros and played for manager A.J. Hinch and would immediately take the Tigers to be an AL Central favorites. If that's the route the Tigers want to go, the money's definitely there. Like they got options. They can spend a little bit if they want.
105.7 million, still in the bottom 7, probably in all of baseball. They got plenty of room to spend money. I feel pretty confident they're not done spending money. I want to ask you for the last time, because we've discussed this so many times. What's your thoughts on the possibility of a Tarik Skubal extension?
Yeah, sadly, I have no optimism for a Tarik Skubal extension at this point. Remember how the salary arbitration process works. Skubal settled with the Tigers for $10.15 million in 2025, which is a $7.5 million raise from his $2.65 million salary in 2024. So he went from $2.65 million to $10.15 million from his first to his second year of arbitration. He is going to get more than $15 million in his third year, probably around $20 million, because these arbitration salaries build on each other. Even if he got injured and never pitched an inning in 2025, he would still get a raise in 2026. That's how the process works. And if he dominates again, he's going to get another massive raise. So the closer Skubal gets to free agency without a contract extension, the more tempting it is for him to test the market. It's not like he needs the money anymore. He just got $10 million. He's going to get $18 million next offseason if all goes as planned. It's not about a guy wanting financial security anymore. He just got financial security. That's why I'm not optimistic about a contract extension. I believe Tarik Skubal can get $400 million in free agency if he maintains health and performance. And I bet his agent, Scott Boras, thinks he can get $400 million in free agency. And I kind of bet Skubal's maybe a little bit curious to find out if he can get $400 million in free agency. And that's fair enough. Like, he deserves to see how much he can get out on the open market, especially after the industry just watched Juan Soto sign for nearly $800 million. I love that the Tigers and Skubal didn't go to an arbitration hearing. They found a salary that both sides agreed upon. That's a really positive sign for the relationship between the Tigers and Skubal, which I believe has always been an outstanding relationship. Even though Skubal is wearing more Boras clothes than Tigers clothes in his offseason workouts this offseason, which didn't seem to be the case last offseason. Either way, Tigers have always had a great relationship with Tarik Skubal. That hasn't changed. And it was on display with what happened in arbitration here, with these two sides finding a point that they could agree on and getting a deal done without needing to go to an arbitration hearing. But anyway, like, the only way to get Skubal to sign a contract extension is by doing one of two things at this point: paying him whatever he wants, like literally giving him whatever he wants, or getting him to fall in love with winning in Detroit. And I don't think the Tigers will do option one, which is sliding over the blank check. And then time will tell if Skubal falls in love with winning in Detroit, but he's only got 2 years left on his contract before he becomes a free agent. And for that to happen, you got to actually show Skubal a roster that's capable of winning several World Series before he leaves in free agency. And the Tigers don't have that roster yet. It's not even close. So to get a guy to fall in love with winning and really believe in winning long term, it's not just buying in with Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal and Thyron Lorenzo and Josue Braceno. Like, that's nice, but that's not a roster that's proven. Going out and getting somebody who's, a legit bat, maybe that says a little something. I'm not so certain exactly how you get him to fall in love with winning, but I think you have to build the roster to get the job done. And then you have to actually go out and win something and really threaten to win the World Series. And the Tigers just aren't there yet. So that's where I'm at when it comes to Skubal and a contract extension. I'm not very optimistic about it, but things can always change. We'll see.
All right, I want to answer this question in as few words as possible, because we've already answered it. It's just not happening. It's a 0% chance it's happening. All right, it's time to get out of here now. I'd like to remind everybody to rate, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And you can always find us embedded in every single Evan Petzold article at freak.com. Per usual, I'd like to thank the boss, Free Press editor Nicole Avery Nichols, the magic man, the man who saves us every single week, Robin Chan. Love to my 2 grandsons. And shout out to the soon-to-be mommy, Savannah Petzold. Till next week. Peace.